Today, we're going to walk through a story that is, frankly, difficult to hear. It's a deeply moving and cautionary tale about misplaced trust and the devastating price that was paid, told through the eyes of the person who lived it. And it all begins with these haunting words from a 16-year-old girl named Noreen. Her entire world was about to be shattered by a chain of events that started, ironically, with her parents just trying to do what they thought was best. You see, this story doesn't start with some obvious act of malice. No, it starts with something much more common, a family's ambition, their pride. And it's so important to understand how this set the stage for everything that followed. So here's the situation. Noreen's mother really wanted her daughter to stand out from the crowd. She wasn't a fan of the local public academy, so she hired a private tutor, and a very expensive one at that. Because in her mind, that high price tag was proof of quality, proof of prestige. It was something she could tell her friends about. But here's the thing, Noreen hated it. Right from the start, she really pushed back against this whole arrangement. She missed learning with her friends, being in a classroom, and she just had this feeling, a sense of discomfort with this new teacher. But when she tried to voice her concerns, they were shut down immediately. Her mother just saw them as excuses, telling her to focus on her grades. For her, status and academic success were the only things that mattered, and that was pretty much the end of the conversation. So, how did we get from that initial resistance to a level of trust that was just dangerously complacent? Let's look at how that caution, slowly, piece by piece, got eroded away. And not just for Noreen, but for her parents, too. This didn't happen overnight. It was a slow burn. First came the amazing grades. Then came the praise. And that academic success started to cover up all the little red flags one by one until everyone, the parents, Noreen, was completely on board. No questions asked. For Noreen, becoming the top student in, every subject was just intoxicating. All that praise she was getting at school, it changed everything. She started to see this tutor as the reason for her success, and she began to trust him completely. She told him everything. Now, her parents had a very active social life. They were often out at parties in the evenings. And this, combined with a couple of really unlucky coincidences, created a perfect storm. A moment of total, complete isolation for Noreen. A house of silence. On this one particular night, every single safeguard, however small, was gone. Her parents were out. The housekeeper had called in sick. So when her tutor showed up for his usual evening lesson, Noreen was completely and utterly alone. And while she was totally focused on her schoolwork, he attacked. In her own words, she says, "The kind-looking person was in reality a beast." She had no warning, no chance to react, no way to escape. He overpowered her in an instant. She describes the feeling of being made totally, completely helpless by him, right there in her own home. The way she described that terror, it's just impossible to forget. She said she felt like a helpless bird, just fluttering. For 2 hours, the assault continued. It left her physically and emotionally shattered. The trauma was so intense that eventually her body just gave out and she lost consciousness. When the tutor saw her lying there, unconscious, he panicked. He just fled. He left her there for dead. And now we have to look at the devastation that came next. The next thing she knew, she was waking up in a hospital. And as the memory of what had just happened came flooding back, she just started screaming until she passed out all over again. 14 days. It took 2 full weeks in that hospital before she was physically stable enough to even think about going home. And her parents, you can only imagine, they were absolutely consumed by grief, by a regret so deep they couldn't even put it into words. But while they were tormented by their pride and their inattention, the damage to Noreen was already done, and it was permanent. Because the story doesn't end when she leaves the hospital. In many ways, that's when the next chapter begins. This is the echo of her parents' negligence, an echo that would never ever go away. I mean, just look at this contrast. The vibrant, top student, the girl who was full of life, she was gone. In her place was someone who had stopped speaking entirely, someone who just withdrew from the world. The change was total. And you can hear it right here. In her own words, she puts the blame squarely on her parents, on their carelessness. That trust she had is just gone, and it's been replaced by a hatred so deep that it has created a rift that might never heal.
So you see, the trauma didn't end that night. It didn't just stop when she got out of the hospital. It fundamentally and permanently rewired her entire existence.
And that brings us to the final, haunting question that Noreen's story forces us to ask. It's a harrowing reminder that sometimes the highest and most unspeakable price is paid for the warnings we simply choose to ignore.